The moon of Arik Dar hung like a baleful eye in the sky, casting its blood-red light over the forest below. Dark, twisted trees rose like skeletal hands, their branches gnarled and crooked. The wind howled through the branches, carrying a low, eerie moan that seemed almost sentient, like the planet itself was mourning the soldiers who had fallen. Private Alex Harlan crouched behind a moss-covered boulder, his pulse pounding in his ears as he listened to the distant sound of gunfire. He wiped a smear of dirt from his face and glanced at his wrist pad, its cracked screen flickering with a blurry map of their last known position. The squad he had arrived with, 25 strong and well-armed, was now whittled down to 5, including himself. The rest had been claimed by whatever lurked in these forests. The thing was hunting them. Fast, deadly, and seemingly unstoppable. Whatever it was, no one had gotten a good look. The soldiers who had glimpsed it were dead. It struck from the shadows, tearing through armor, flesh, and bone alike. It didn't just kill it ripped apart, leaving bodies unrecognizable. Alex's heart raced as he scanned the dense underbrush. His pulse throbbed in his temples, his hands gripping his rifle tighter. Every shadow seemed to move. Every rustle of leaves could be the predator stalking them. The planet's atmosphere did nothing to soothe the nerves. It was hot, suffocating, with a thick fog that clung to the ground like a predator's breath. "Stay sharp," Harlan Sergeant Diaz whispered, his voice a gravelly rasp as he crouched low beside Alex. "It's close." Alex nodded, his throat dry. Diaz had been in the field for over 15 years, surviving some of the worst conflicts in the galaxy. If Diaz was spooked, then they were in deep trouble. His sharp eyes flicked toward the tree line ahead. "We push to that ridge. It'll give us a better view, maybe some cover. Move quick, stay low." The rest of the team was spread out behind them: Corporal Malik, Corporal Sanders, and Private Reese. They were all on edge, faces drawn and pale from the relentless attacks. They had fought tooth and nail just to make it this far, but it was clear they were all thinking the same thing. They wouldn't last much longer out here. Alex took a deep breath and followed Diaz as he led the way toward the ridge, the red moonlight casting long, eerie shadows. The undergrowth was thick, every step a careful, deliberate movement. The ground squelched underfoot, slick with moisture from the dense fog. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of damp earth and rotting vegetation. Just as they reached the incline, the sound came again, a low, guttural growl vibrating through the air. Alex's blood turned to ice. He froze, rifle up, his eyes scanning the darkness. The others stopped too, crouching low, weapons ready. "It's here," Reese whispered, voice trembling. "Shut up," Diaz hissed. But it was too late. A blur of movement shot from the trees, too fast to react. Alex barely had time to register the motion before Reese was lifted into the air, screaming, as the predator slammed into him with bone-shattering force. Blood sprayed the ground as a massive clawed arm ripped through Reese's chest, his scream cut off in a wet gurgle. "Open fire," Diaz bellowed. Alex pulled the trigger, the staccato of gunfire splitting the air as rounds tore through the trees. But the thing, whatever it was already gone, disappearing back into the fog. Reese's body fell to the ground, a mangled heap. The silence that followed was suffocating. Diaz cursed under his breath, scanning the tree line with wide, frantic eyes. Damn it, damn it." "It's playing with us," Malik said, voice shaking. "It could have killed us all right there if it wanted to." Alex wiped sweat from his brow, his hands trembling. He had seen death before, but never like this. Never this fast, this savage. "We need to move," he whispered, "before it comes back." Diaz nodded sharply, his eyes narrowing. "Agreed. Stay tight. Don't give it any more openings." They pushed forward, their pace quickening as they climbed the ridge. The incline was steep, the ground loose and treacherous underfoot. Alex's lungs burned with each step, but he kept his head down, focused on the path ahead. He couldn't let himself think about Reese or the others who had fallen. Not now. Not if he wanted to survive. At the top of the ridge, they paused, catching their breath. The view was dismal, endless forest stretching in every direction, shrouded in mist and shadow. There was no sign of civilization, no sign of help. Just the oppressive wilderness and the blood-red glow of Arik Dar's moon. We can't keep running like this, Sanders muttered, wiping the sweat from his forehead. We're sitting ducks. Diaz glanced back down the ridge, where Reese's body lay motionless far below. We make a stand here. It'll come for us, sooner or later. Better we face it on our terms. Alex's stomach churned. The idea of waiting for that thing to come for them was terrifying, but he knew Diaz was right. They couldn't outrun it. They had to confront it, whatever it was. They set up a defensive position, using the natural cover of the rocks and trees at the ridge's crest. Alex crouched behind a large boulder, his rifle aimed at the tree line, every nerve on edge. His heart thudded in his chest as minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity. Then, in the distance, the growl came again. Low, menacing, and closer. Alex's pulse raced as he tightened his grip on his rifle. His eyes darted from shadow to shadow, the fog shifting like ghosts between the trees. A branch snapped somewhere in the distance. There, Malik whispered, pointing toward a patch of underbrush about 20 meters out. The air seemed to hum with tension as the growl deepened, vibrating through the ground beneath them. Something moved through the mist, its massive form barely visible. Alex's mouth went dry as he caught the first real glimpse of the predator. It was huge, standing over 8 feet tall, its body a hulking mass of muscle and sinew. Its skin was mottled gray and black, blending seamlessly with the shadows. Thick plates of natural armor covered its torso and limbs, and long, razor-sharp claws extended from its massive hands. Its eyes, glowing like molten coals, locked onto Alex with a chilling, predatory intelligence. Diaz's voice cut through the tension. Light it up. Gunfire erupted, shredding the air as the squad unleashed everything they had. But the creature moved with impossible speed, darting to the side as the rounds tore into the trees and dirt where it had been. It was on them before they could adjust their aim, launching itself at Sanders. Alex barely had time to blink before the creature was on top of Sanders, slashing through his armor with a sickening crunch. Blood sprayed, and Sanders' scream was cut short as the beast tore him apart in seconds. No, Malik screamed, firing wildly. The creature turned toward Malik, its eyes gleaming with savage intent. But before it could lunge, something strange happened. It hesitated. For the briefest moment, the beast's gaze flickered away from Malik to Alex, as if curious. There was a moment of stillness, a silence that hung heavy in the air, and then it vanished back into the trees, disappearing like smoke. Malik collapsed to the ground, panting in terror, his weapon shaking in his hands. It didn't kill me. Diaz cursed, kicking at the dirt. It's toying with us, drawing it out. But Alex wasn't so sure. There had been something in the way the predator looked at him, something more than simple bloodlust. It hadn't attacked him. It could have, but it hadn't. That night, as they huddled in their makeshift camp, Diaz and Malik kept watch, but Alex couldn't sleep. His mind kept replaying the moment when the predator had looked at him, the strange flicker of hesitation in its glowing eyes. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this creature than they understood. Something deeper. The next day, they moved cautiously, trying to make their way back to the landing zone. But it wasn't long before they realized the predator was following them, always just out of sight, its presence a constant, looming threat. It never attacked, but the tension was unbearable, like a storm waiting to break. Then, it happened again. The growl, the movement in the shadows, and the sudden, lightning-fast attack. This time, Malik didn't survive. The predator tore through him with ruthless efficiency, leaving Alex and Diaz alone. As they ran, stumbling through the forest, Alex knew they wouldn't make it. Not unless they did something drastic. Diaz, stop, Alex panted, grabbing the sergeant's arm. What the hell are you doing? Diaz snapped, yanking his arm free. We need to keep moving. No, we can't outrun it. We have to face it. Diaz stared at him like he was insane. You want to fight that thing? You saw what it did to the others. We'll be dead in seconds. Alex shook his head, his mind racing. Not fight it. It's not just a mindless killer. It hesitated, twice. I think it's testing us. Diaz looked at him, incredulous. Testing us? It's a damn animal. Alex stepped closer, lowering his voice. No, it's more than that. Look, the way it looked at me, the way it didn't kill Malik right away. I think it's sizing us up. We've been treating it like some wild beast. But what if it's smarter than we think? Diaz stared at him for a moment, then swore under his breath, pacing in the mud. So what's your plan? Talk to it. Offer it a peace treaty. I don't know, Alex admitted. But running isn't working, and we're out of time. If we try to fight it head on, we're dead. Maybe we can get through to it somehow. Diaz stopped pacing, eyes narrowing in frustration. This is insane. Everything about this situation is insane, Alex shot back, his voice rising. But we're alive, and we shouldn't be. That thing has had dozens of chances to finish us, and yet we're still here. There's something going on that we don't understand, and if we don't figure it out, we'll die like the others. Diaz clenched his jaw, his hand tightening around his rifle. After a tense moment, he sighed, lowering his weapon slightly. Fine, but if this goes sideways, we fight. Agreed. Agreed, Alex said, his heart pounding. He wasn't entirely sure what he was doing, but it was the only chance they had left. The alternative was certain death. The two of them waited, crouched low behind a cluster of rocks, the eerie red moonlight filtering through the trees. The silence stretched on, thick and oppressive. The only sound was their ragged breathing and the distant rustle of leaves. Every second felt like an eternity. Then, the growl came again. Alex's pulse quickened. He tightened his grip on his rifle but didn't raise it. Instead, he stood slowly, stepping out from behind the cover of the rocks. Diaz gave him a sharp look, but Alex motioned for him to stay back. Let's see if this works, Alex muttered to himself. He walked forward slowly and deliberately, his eyes scanning the tree line. The mist clung to the ground, swirling around his boots. The air was thick with tension, as if the very planet was holding its breath. And then, it emerged. The predator stepped out of the shadows, its massive form towering over Alex. Its skin rippled in the moonlight, the mottled gray and black blending seamlessly with the dark forest. Its glowing eyes locked onto Alex, burning with an intense, almost unnerving intelligence. Long, razor-sharp claws glistened at its sides, but it didn't attack. Alex stood his ground, heart hammering in his chest. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. He could feel Diaz watching from behind, ready to open fire at the slightest sign of danger. But Alex didn't raise his weapon. Instead, he slowly knelt, lowering himself to the ground in a gesture of submission, his eyes never leaving the creature. He could see the muscle and sinew shifting under its thick hide, the raw power contained in every movement. But there was something else, a sense of purpose, of control. The predator tilted its head slightly, watching him with those glowing eyes. It took a step closer, its massive clawed feet sinking into the soft earth. Alex's heart was pounding so loudly he thought it might burst. But he stayed still, kneeling in the mist, hoping, praying that his instincts were right. The creature sniffed the air, a low rumble vibrating through its chest. For a moment, it stood directly in front of him, towering over him like a living nightmare. But then, to Alex's shock, it did something unexpected. It knelt too. The massive predator slowly lowered itself to one knee, its eyes never leaving Alex's. There was a strange, almost ceremonial feel to the moment, as if the creature was acknowledging him in some way. The tension in the air shifted, no longer thick with danger, but something else, something unfamiliar. Alex swallowed hard, his mind racing. He had no idea what to do next, but he knew one thing for sure: this was no mindless beast. Diaz, Alex whispered, barely daring to breathe. Don't shoot. Diaz, still hidden behind the rocks, didn't respond, but Alex could feel his presence, could sense the weight of his indecision. They were teetering on the edge of something fragile, something that could shatter at the slightest wrong move. The predator let out a low, rumbling sound, not a growl this time, but something more guttural, almost like speech. Alex couldn't understand it, but there was a rhythm to the sound, a cadence that felt intentional. I don't understand you, Alex said quietly, his voice shaking. but I'm not your enemy." The predator tilted its head again, as if considering his words. It rose slowly, stepping back from Alex but not retreating into the forest. Instead, it stood there, watching him with those intense, glowing eyes. Diaz finally spoke, his voice low and cautious. "What the hell is happening, Harlan?" I think it's trying to communicate," Alex said, standing slowly, keeping his hands in plain sight. "I think it's been testing us all along, seeing if we're a threat, or something more." Diaz's eyes flicked between Alex and the predator, his face a mask of uncertainty. "And what if you're wrong?" Alex met Diaz's gaze. "Then we're dead anyway." The sergeant cursed again, but this time he didn't raise his weapon. He stepped out from behind the rocks, slowly approaching Alex's side. The predator's eyes flicked to Diaz, but it didn't move. For a long moment the three of them stood there, locked in a tense standoff, each waiting for the other to make the next move. The mist swirled around them, the red moon casting an otherworldly glow over the scene. Finally, the predator let out another low sound, almost like a grunt, and turned away, walking back into the forest. It moved with a slow, deliberate grace, its massive form disappearing into the mist once again. But this time, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a retreat. Diaz let out a long breath, his shoulders sagging in relief. "Did we just survive that?" "I think so," Alex said, still staring into the trees where the predator had vanished. "For now." They stood there for a moment longer, neither of them sure what to say. The oppressive weight that had hung over them for days seemed to lift, replaced by a strange, uncertain calm. "We should keep moving," Diaz finally said, his voice rough. "If we can make it back to the landing zone, maybe." A loud, piercing shriek cut through the air, sending a chill down Alex's spine. It wasn't the predator, it was something else. Something far more sinister. Diaz's eyes widened. That came from the LZ. Alex felt a knot of dread settle in his stomach. We're not alone on this planet. They exchanged a look, then without another word, they ran, their boots pounding the earth as they raced through the forest toward the landing zone. The sound of the shriek echoed behind them, a haunting reminder that whatever hunted them wasn't finished. But as they ran, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the predator, the one they had feared for so long, wasn't the real danger on Arakdar. It might just be their only chance of survival. The landing zone was chaos when they arrived. Their dropship was crumpled and smoking, its hull ripped apart by some unknown force. Flames licked the side of the wreckage, casting a flickering light over the scene. Several bodies lay scattered around the crash site, twisted and broken other soldiers from their battalion, or what was left of them. Diaz cursed under his breath as they crouched behind a ridge, surveying the carnage. What the hell happened here? Alex didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the far side of the clearing, where something huge was moving through the smoke. It wasn't the predator, this thing was different, larger, more mechanical. It moved with a strange, jerky rhythm, like a giant insect made of metal and flesh. "That's what attacked the ship," Alex whispered. The creature, a grotesque fusion of organic tissue and machine, scuttled across the wreckage, its long, spindly legs clicking against the metal. Its head was a mass of writhing tendrils, each tipped with a glowing red sensor, scanning the area for survivors. Diaz raised his rifle. "We need to." Before he could finish, the predator emerged from the trees, moving with terrifying speed. It barreled into the mechanical creature with a roar, slashing at it with those massive claws. Sparks flew as metal met bone, the two monsters locked in a vicious battle. Alex watched in shock as the predator fought the machine, its movements precise and deadly. It wasn't just a mindless brute, it was a warrior, skilled and calculating. "Should we help?" Diaz asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Alex shook his head. "I don't think we need to." The battle was brutal, but it was clear the predator had the upper hand. It tore through the machine's armor with ease, ripping off one of its spindly legs and slamming it into the ground. The machine shrieked, a high-pitched, metallic wail, but the predator didn't relent. It slashed again, tearing through wires and flesh until the creature collapsed, twitching, then finally lay still. The predator stood over its fallen foe, its chest heaving, blood and oil dripping from its claws. For a moment it seemed to bask in the victory, then it turned its glowing eyes toward Alex and Diaz. There was a brief, tense silence as the predator regarded them, its breath heavy. Then, without a sound, it nodded a slow, deliberate gesture and disappeared into the trees once more. Alex and Diaz stood frozen for a moment, staring at the spot where the predator had vanished. Did that thing just save us? Diaz asked, incredulous. I think so, Alex said, his mind spinning. He could hardly believe what he had just witnessed. They moved cautiously through the wreckage, checking for any signs of survivors. But there were none. Whatever had attacked the ship had been merciless, and their chances of getting off the planet were looking grim. But as they sifted through the debris, Alex's wrist pad buzzed. He glanced down, and his heart leaped. There was a faint signal. A distress beacon. Diaz saw it too. Someone's out there. Alex nodded, and they might be our only hope of getting out of here alive. As they prepared to move, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that their fate was now tied to the predator that had once hunted them. And deep down he knew that whatever was coming next, they would need each other to survive. The game had changed. The predator was no longer their enemy. It was their ally. And somewhere in the darkness, something far worse was waiting. As Alex and Diaz moved deeper into the forest, following the faint signal of the distress beacon, Alex couldn't help but wonder what had brought them to this planet in the first place, and what other nightmares waited for them in the shadows. But one thing was certain: the predator wasn't the only monster on Arik-Dar. The forest was darker now, the blood-red glow of Arik-Dar's moon barely piercing the thick canopy above. The air was still, oppressive, as if the entire planet held its breath, waiting for the final act to unfold. Alex and Diaz moved quickly but cautiously, following the faint signal of the distress beacon, the rhythmic pulsing on Alex's wrist pad their only guide through the unrelenting wilderness. "We're close," Alex said, his voice low. Diaz glanced at the wrist pad, eyes narrowing. "Let's hope whoever sent that signal is still alive." Alex nodded, but unease gnawed at him. They had just witnessed two titanic predators battling it out, one organic, the other an abomination of metal and flesh. Whatever else was on this planet was bound to be worse. The signal led them into a small clearing surrounded by towering black trees. At the center of the clearing was the source of the distress call, a small, battered survival pod, half buried in the dirt and overgrown with vines. Its emergency beacon flashed intermittently, casting a dim, orange glow over the surrounding area. Diaz crouched, scanning the tree line with his rifle raised. This could be a trap. Alex nodded, moving cautiously toward the pod. "Or it's our only way off this rock." As he approached, the door of the pod creaked open with a hiss of escaping air. Inside, slumped against the cracked interior, was a soldier, a woman in torn, blood-stained armor. Her face was gaunt, pale, and covered in grime. She barely stirred as Alex knelt beside her. "Hey, we're here to help," he said gently, checking for signs of life. "You're gonna be okay." Her eyes fluttered open, bloodshot and dazed. She blinked, trying to focus on Alex's face. You're not them," she rasped. Alex's stomach tightened. Them. Diaz moved closer, his rifle still trained on the tree line. "She's been through hell. Let's get her out of here before whatever did this comes back." The woman's hand shot up, gripping Alex's arm with surprising strength. "No, you don't understand. They're coming. It's too late." Alex looked into her eyes, filled with fear and desperation, and felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Who's coming?" She coughed, blood flecking her lips. "The others. They sent the machines to cleanse the surface, to kill everything. But they're just the first wave. The real hunters, they're coming." Diaz glanced at Alex, his face darkening. What the hell is she talking about? Before Alex could respond, The ground beneath them rumbled. A low, guttural hum vibrated through the earth, like a giant engine revving to life. The trees around the clearing began to sway, despite there being no wind. Alex stood, his pulse racing. We need to move. Now. But as soon as he spoke, a loud screech filled the air, followed by the unmistakable whine of heavy machinery. From the far end of the clearing, the trees parted, and something massive emerged, a hulking machine, far larger than the one the Predator had fought earlier. This one moved on 4 segmented legs, its body a grotesque fusion of metal and organic tissue, pulsing with sickly green light. Its head, a mass of writhing tendrils, swiveled toward them, red sensors flickering to life. Diaz swore. "We can't take that thing on." The soldier in the pod let out a weak sob. "It's too late." Alex pulled her up, slinging her arm over his shoulder. "We're not staying here to die. We run." Diaz fired a few rounds at the machine, the bullets pinging harmlessly off its thick, armored hide. "Run where? That thing will rip us apart before we even get out of the clearing." But Alex wasn't listening. His gaze shifted to the shadows at the edge of the clearing. The Predator, their predator, was there, watching. He couldn't see it, but he could feel its presence, lurking just beyond the tree line. It was waiting. Suddenly, the Predator burst from the trees, its hulking form a blur of muscle and speed. It barreled straight toward the mechanical beast, roaring with a primal fury. It leaped onto the machine, its claws tearing into the metal plating with a screech of metal on bone. The machine reared back, its tendrils whipping through the air as it tried to shake the Predator off. But the Predator clung to its side, driving its claws deeper into the machine's core, ripping wires and hydraulic lines free. Sparks flew, and the machine let out a deafening, high-pitched shriek. Diaz stared, wide-eyed. "Holy hell, it's actually helping us." Alex didn't waste time. "Come on, while it's distracted." He and Diaz moved quickly, half carrying the injured soldier as they dashed across the clearing, heading for the dense forest on the other side. Behind them, the Predator continued to tear into the machine, but the mechanical beast wasn't going down without a fight. It swung its massive legs, trying to crush the Predator beneath its weight, but the Predator was too fast, darting in and out of reach. As Alex and Diaz reached the tree line, another rumble shook the ground. The air crackled with energy, and a deep, ominous hum filled the forest. Alex's heart sank. There were more of them. A second machine, even larger than the first, emerged from the forest to the east, its segmented legs pounding the earth as it moved. It was covered in the same organic metallic fusion, but this one was bristling with weapons' long, spiked appendages that glowed with a sickly green light. The new machine scanned the battlefield, its sensors locking onto the Predator as it finished ripping apart the first one. The Predator turned, its glowing eyes narrowing as it faced the new threat. But Alex could see the exhaustion in its movements. It had already been through too much. Diaz stopped, looking back at the unfolding battle. "We can't just leave it to fight both of them alone." Alex gritted his teeth, torn. The Predator had saved their lives, fought to protect them, even though it had every reason to see them as enemies. And now, it was facing an impossible battle. "I have an idea," Alex said, pulling the soldier to the ground behind a thick tree and handing her off to Diaz. "Cover me." Diaz blinked. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to help it," Alex said, grabbing his rifle and a grenade from his belt. "We don't stand a chance unless that thing survives. If we can get it through this, maybe it'll help us take out the rest of these machines." "Are you out of your damn mind?" "Maybe," Alex said, a grim smile tugging at his lips. "But I think it's worth a shot." Before Diaz could protest, Alex sprinted back toward the clearing, his rifle slung across his back. He moved as fast as he could, ducking between the trees and rocks to avoid the massive legs of the new machine as it engaged the Predator. The Predator was holding its own, barely, dodging the machine's spiked limbs and lashing out with its claws whenever it found an opening. But it was tiring fast. The new machine was relentless, and it was only a matter of time before it overpowered the Predator. Alex reached the edge of the clearing and took a deep breath. Here goes nothing. He pulled the pin on the grenade and lobbed it toward the machine's underbelly, aiming for a cluster of exposed wiring where the first machine had been ripped apart. The grenade bounced once and rolled beneath the machine, detonating with a deafening boom. The machine let out a mechanical wail, its movements stuttering as sparks flew from the damaged section. It staggered, giving the predator just enough time to leap onto its back and plunge its claws into the glowing core. With a final, ear-splitting shriek, the machine collapsed, its legs twitching as it powered down. The predator stood atop the wreckage, breathing heavily, its glowing eyes fixed on Alex. For a long moment they stared at each other, the air thick with tension. Then, slowly, the predator nodded the same deliberate gesture it had made before. It understood. Alex exhaled, his legs trembling from the adrenaline. "We did it." Diaz emerged from the trees, helping the injured soldier along. "Hell of a show, Harlan. But we're not out of the woods yet." Alex nodded, glancing at the horizon. More machines were coming, their hulking forms moving through the mist, relentless and unstoppable. But now, they weren't alone. The predator leaped down from the wreckage, landing with a heavy thud beside Alex. It growled low in its throat, its glowing eyes scanning the oncoming threat. Without a word, it began to move, heading toward the approaching machines with deadly purpose.